They thought they could erase me from a $50 million system that I built with my own hands. What they didn't know was that I'd already wired it to self-destruct the moment they stopped paying me. My name is Michael Rodriguez. I'm 32 years old, senior software architect at Dataflow Technologies, and for the past 3 years, I've been the guy who keeps this company's digital heart beating. Most people don't know what I do. They just know that when their dashboards work, their reports load, and their metrics make sense, somewhere in the background, my code is making it happen. I built our entire analytics infrastructure from scratch. Not helped build or contributed to. I mean, I literally architected every database, wrote every API, and designed every dashboard that generates 87% of this company's decision-making data. The system processes 2.3 million transactions daily, serves 400-plus internal users, and handles $12 million worth of client reporting. But 3 weeks ago, watching champagne spray across the break room's mounted flat screen during our success celebration, I already knew they weren't going to pay me. The moment the champagne bottle exploded and sprayed over the mounted flat screen in the break room, I already knew they weren't going to pay me. Not in money, not in credit, not in basic human decency. The system I built, line by line, sleepless night by sleepless night, just hit 400% above projected traffic. Real-time usage metrics rolled across the monitor like fireworks. API uptime flawless. Dashboards responsive. Cross-departmental reporting humming like a goddamn Tesla coil. The product was alive, breathing, efficient, stable. That wasn't luck. That was me. People clapped. Marketing posted celebratory selfies. Sales handed out those corny foil balloons that say success. I stood off to the side sipping lukewarm coffee and watching my own work being passed around like a corporate party trick. I wasn't mad, not yet, just tired. Then the manager strolled in, Brad with his $80 haircut and permanent smirk, and patted me on the shoulder like a dog who didn't bite the guests. "Hey, quick thing," he said like it was an afterthought. "Your bonus isn't going through this cycle. Policy stuff, you get it?" I blinked. Policy? "Yeah, upper levels are cracking down on post-launch bonuses," he said, already turning to walk away. "It's not personal." "Not personal. Like my weekend spent babysitting database failures weren't personal. Like the clause I negotiated in our licensing contract, line 13.2, subsection D, third-party retention condition, wasn't damn personal. Like the blood in my coffee wasn't personal." I didn't respond, didn't scream, didn't pull a Jerry Maguire and flip the printer off its tray. I nodded once and said, "Got it." What I really got was this: they thought I was replaceable. The man who rebuilt their data stack from the ashes of a contractor's half-finished garbage heap could be filed under cost containment. That my negotiated compensation was an acceptable loss to someone who literally wrote the terms of legal use for the company's analytics vendor. I walked back to my desk. The noise of the room dimmed like someone turned down the treble on reality. My inbox was full of congrats and "can you hop on a quick call?" Requests. Everyone wanted something. Metrics, charts, proof the system was real and not just smoke and mirrors. I gave them what they wanted. No edge in my voice. No delay in delivery. But something inside me clicked into place. Not rage, not revenge, not yet. Just a calm clinical understanding. They were now using a system whose legal operating status was tied to one line in a contract that no one but me had bothered to read. And that line had one condition: my employment compensation status. So when Brad handed me that non-answer and walked away like I was lucky to still have a badge, he wasn't just stiffing me a bonus. He was pulling the pin on the very grenade I'd buried in the foundation of their precious platform. All I had to do now was let gravity take its course. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't run to HR, didn't slack my contacts in legal. I just opened my encrypted folder, found the PDF, highlighted the clause, and stared at it for a long moment. I remembered the meeting with the vendor, remembered how hard I had to fight to get that clause included. I wasn't even supposed to be negotiating. Brad had dropped the ball, of course, but I stepped in, spent 2 weeks wrangling red lines and vendor-side counsel just to protect myself, just in case they ever decided to screw me like this, just in case. I went back to my inbox, sent out 3 high-priority reports, answered a couple of technical questions from product, and scheduled a sync for Monday. I smiled, waved to the intern, laughed at a joke I didn't hear. Then I opened a fresh email, addressed it to legal, typed 4 words in the subject line, FYI, Potential compliance issue. Monday morning smelled like stale donuts and denial. The confetti had barely been vacuumed out of the hallway rugs when the email blasts began. Subject lines like incredible teamwork and historic win for the team. Pinging inboxes like tiny corporate fireworks. And in each one, the same oily fingerprints. Senior leadership patting themselves on the back for my work. The official post-mortem dropped around 10:06 a.m. A neat PDF dressed in charts I designed, colored in branding I customized, stitched together with metrics pulled directly from my system's spine. There was a 2-page summary of the architecture written in third person like it was discovered in a field instead of engineered over 2 years of unpaid weekends. And nowhere did it say my name. The authors, product lead, vice president of operations, and Brad fucking Morrison. The man who once asked me if Python was the snake, one had signed off on a technical overview that included phrases I wrote verbatim in Slack 6 weeks ago. My name was gone. My contributions reduced to vague references about cross-functional input. I wasn't a person. I was a bullet point. I didn't say a word. No passive-aggressive emoji reactions. No just looping myself in here replies. I opened a new local folder and labeled it simply Insurance. In it, I started dragging copies, Slack threads, design drafts, version histories, architecture diagrams with timestamps. Not in anger, in preparation. A war doesn't start with a cannon blast. It starts with someone quietly sharpening a knife. By noon, the murmur started. One of the DevOps guys asked if anyone had cleared the final vendor clauses with legal before the system went live. Some weird stuff in Appendix D, he said casually, sipping from a world's okayest engineer mug. I kept my eyes on my screen, cleaning up post-launch reports. A project manager replied, "Legal probably skimmed it, right? I mean, nothing's come up?" I smiled faintly. The kind of smile you give a magician right before he realizes the rabbit's chewing through his sleeve. That afternoon, I pulled up the license again. Not just the clause I highlighted last week, but the whole thing. Every page, every signature, every timestamp. I knew exactly how it would play out if I needed to drop it. Not just breach of contract level chaos, but system-wide blackout chaos. The kind of thing investors ask about on emergency earnings calls. I didn't need to swing yet. I just needed to wait. Let the silence stretch. Let Brad forget what he skimmed. Let leadership polish their boots on my back a little longer. Because the moment they made it official, unpaid, unacknowledged, erased, that clause would activate like a tripwire. The file sat in a folder no one else remembered, not even the procurement team. I'd labeled it with one of those boring file names that practically screamed ignore me to anyone without a working understanding of licensing law, ANC 34 license final, executed V7. PDF, but I remembered. God, I remembered every line. It was a Wednesday. Everyone was still high on caffeine and ego from the launch. Brad had started calling the system our baby in meetings, his voice taking on this weird paternal tone like he'd been there for more than 5 Slack approvals and a lunch where he asked what a data warehouse was. So I opened the file. The clause was exactly where I remembered it. Appendix D, subsection 3, paragraph B. Single sentence. One legal needle buried in a haystack of whereas and therefore, in the event that the designated technical consultant as defined in Addendum B, Michael Rodriguez, acting in dual capacity as employee and external technical advisor, experiences termination of either employment status or consulting retainer for any period exceeding 96 hours, this license agreement shall be considered null and void, with a 24-hour compliance grace period for vendor notification. No gray area, no ambiguity, just pure black and white kill switch. That clause didn't exist by accident. It was born out of spite. 2 years ago, Brad and his buddies tried to outsource the analytics rebuild to a contractor in Austin, someone who bragged about 10x engineering and thought documentation was optional. I caught the Slack messages by mistake. They were ready to cut me out entirely. So I made a call to my lawyer, then to the vendor. Explained that I'd be operating in dual capacity. Employee for day-to-day work, independent consultant for system architecture and vendor relationships. Company would get a better deal on licensing, but it required my personal guarantee as the technical consultant of record. The company loved it, saved them $400,000 annually on licensing fees. They just never read the fine print about what happened if they terminated either relationship. And now we were standing on a legal landmine with both feet. I drafted a new message to our internal legal counsel. No drama, no warning shots, just 4 lines. Subject, FYI, potential compliance issue. Hi, Rebecca. Looping you in on the analytics license, specifically Appendix D. There may be compliance implications if current compensation structure isn't aligned. Attaching for your review, Michael attached the contract. PDF original signature time-stamped. Let the document speak for itself. Then I hit send. Nothing dramatic. No bells, no fire alarms. But as soon as I clicked that little paper airplane icon, the entire game changed. The first sign was the silence. Not absence of noise silence, targeted silence. The kind that spreads in pockets. The kind that's engineered. Legal pinged Brad on Thursday morning. I know this because Rebecca, our lead counsel, CC'd me in the message. Just a brief, polite ask for clarification around the analytics licensing structure. Following up on Appendix D, she wrote with all the dispassionate calm of a surgeon prepping a scalpel. Brad didn't respond. Not immediately. Not even after she followed up with just want to confirm current compensation alignment to ensure license compliance. He left it unread for 6 hours. I watched his Slack status bounce between active and in a meeting, the little green dot flickering like a heartbeat. Then something curious happened. I got removed from the Data Ops Slack channel. No warning, no explanation. Just poof. 1 second I was there reading a thread about integrating new endpoints. The next I was staring at you no longer have access to this workspace like I'd been voted off the island. Same thing happened with the morning stand-up invite. It vanished from my calendar. They were icing me out. Brad probably thought he was being strategic. Contain the fallout. Limit my exposure. Start restructuring without the headache of confrontation. Instead, I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it Critical Dependencies, Analytics V 3.6. I started listing everything. Daily sales dashboards powered by my pipeline customer churn reports for the board, my Python scripts, real-time ops monitoring, runs through my Kafka streams, forecasting tools for the CFO's quarterly call, pulled from models I deployed data warehouse transformations, scheduled with cron jobs I handcrafted during a blizzard last February while Brad was WFH with spotty Wi-Fi. By lunchtime, I had 43 systems linked to my codebase. By end of day, 68. By midnight, 92. And still no reply from Brad. No response to legal, no course correction, just silence and soft isolation. What they didn't realize is I built the damn trigger. I installed the wiring. I wrote the clause. All I had to do was wait. The meeting wasn't on anyone's calendar. No subject line, no prep deck, no Slack pings. Just a string of quiet shoulder taps from legal. Rebecca pulling a handful of names into conference room C like she was assembling a jury before sentencing. Inside, Brad, red-faced and bored. Someone from HR chewing gum like she was at a high school pep rally. A finance analyst fresh out of grad school who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Rebecca sat at the end, laptop open, fingers steepled like she was praying or about to sentence someone to hell. I wasn't invited. Of course not. But I didn't need to be, because I already knew what file was open on her screen. The clause, Appendix D. The noose Rebecca had been digging. The kind of digging only lawyers with good instincts and bad sleep schedules do. She'd read the contract, actually read it, understood what Brad hadn't, that the license wasn't just a formality. It was a living contract, a heartbeat agreement. And the heart, that was me. I want to verify something, she said, her voice low like a bomb technician talking through a wire snip. Is Michael currently being compensated in accordance with his employment agreement? HR spoke first, like it was a softball question. Yes, of course. He's active, hasn't been terminated. Rebecca didn't flinch. That wasn't the question. Has he been paid? A pause. Finance flipped through a spreadsheet, frowning. His Q3 performance bonus is still under review. I don't see a disbursement yet. Brad jumped in too fast, too eager. We're still evaluating performance metrics tied to the rollout. I mean, the team did great, obviously, but there's some policy-level stuff around post-launch incentive triggers that Rebecca held up a hand. Slow, surgical. Then she closed the laptop. Not slammed, not passive-aggressive. Just a quiet, final closing like a lid on a coffin. She looked at them, really looked at them, and said, "If he's unpaid, we're in breach." HR blinked. Of what? Rebecca pointed to the laptop, now shut. Clause 13.2, subsection D. The license agreement that gives us legal access to 97% of our analytics infrastructure. The clause that requires Michael to be in compensated employment status in order for that license to remain valid. Brad tried to laugh. That's just boilerplate. No, Rebecca said, so softly it made the air go cold. It's not. The room went still. Rebecca leaned forward, elbows on the table. If this isn't fixed, we're out of compliance. Which means our access to the system is illegal. Which means every dashboard, every report, every investor call using that data becomes exposure. Which means you, she turned to Brad, need to explain why you failed to process a compensation clause that has operational kill switch language attached. Brad looked like a man slowly realizing his parachute was actually a gym bag. I didn't know, he mumbled. You were in the loop, she replied. You signed the disbursement delay form. You authorized the review freeze. The finance kid cleared his throat. We thought it was standard. Nobody mentioned Rebecca cut him off. It's not standard. It's negligence. Silence, long and heavy. Then she stood up. I'm escalating this to the CEO, she said. If he's not paid by end of day, we will be in breach. And if that happens, I'll have to file a formal notification with our outside counsel and the vendor's compliance team. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. And if you think he's bluffing, she added without looking back, you should read the rest of the contract. He wrote most of it. It started with a compliance warning. Monday, 6 a.m. sharp. Every dashboard, every executive report, every investor-facing metric displayed the same amber banner. License compliance review initiated. 24-hour verification period. The DevOps team thought it was routine. Some automatic check triggered by the vendor's quarterly audit system. Nothing to panic about. By Tuesday morning, the banner had turned red. License verification failed. Contact designated consultant for immediate resolution. That's when the phone calls started. First to Brad, then to procurement, then to Rebecca and legal. Each department pointing fingers at the others, nobody understanding what designated consultant meant. Because they had all forgotten that the licensing agreement wasn't just between Dataflow Technologies and the vendor. It was a three-party agreement, company, vendor, and Michael Rodriguez Consulting, LLC. Wednesday at 6 a.m., exactly 96 hours after my bonus was officially denied, the system went dark. Every executive dashboard, board metric, investor KPI, churn heat map, customer lifetime value projection shut down with a single brutal message: license terminated. Technical consultant contract breached. Contact account, holder for reinstatement. No grace period. No warning emails. No gradual degradation. Just instant, total blackout of 87% of the company's decision-making infrastructure. The account holder was me. Or rather, my consulting company that nobody remembered existed until they needed someone to blame. By 6:45, Brad's voicemail was full. So was his inbox. So was his soul, probably. People started hovering near his door like kids watching a house fire. I watched the whole thing from the break room, feet up, sipping burnt office coffee from a chipped mug that said, "Data never sleeps." Ironic, I wasn't gloating. I wasn't even smiling. I just existed. Calm. Present. A ghost in the machine. By 7:30, it had escalated to legal. Legal had escalated to Rebecca. Rebecca didn't ping me. She didn't have to. By 8:02, she was outside the CEO's office, black binder in hand. I could see her through the glass wall, speaking low and fast, face pale but composed. The CEO looked confused, then concerned, then still. By 8:15, the emergency meeting was called. No Zoom, no calendar invite. In person only. The subject line said one word: URGENT. I was not invited again, but that didn't matter. My name was already in the room. The room was full, but no one breathed. Not when Rebecca opened the black binder. Not when she clicked her pen with that little snap that always sounded like a warning shot. Not even when she said the name of the clause aloud like a priest reciting scripture at the gallows. Appendix D, Clause 13.2, subsection D, she said, scanning the page, but voice aimed directly at Brad. Termination upon the unpaid status of the designated technical lead. The projector was off. The blinds were drawn. No charts, no slide decks, no spin. Just printed paper and the collective heart rate of 5 executives realizing they'd stepped on a landmine. Rebecca looked up, calm as a storm that had already passed through. Please tell me you paid him, Brad stammered. He's employed. Active status, he hasn't been terminated. That's not what I asked, Rebecca replied, her tone colder than corporate laminate. Was he paid? A long pause. Then, finally, from the junior finance analyst in the corner, his Q3 bonus was withheld. Still under internal review. Rebecca blinked once, closed the binder with surgical precision, then flipped it back open to a new page. Highlighted, underlined. Notarized. Then she said, "You better call your investors." Silence detonated in the room. The CFO visibly paled. The VP of sales started rubbing his temples like he could physically squeeze the consequences out. The CEO didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the paper like it might catch fire on its own. "I strongly recommend we issue retroactive compensation immediately," Rebecca continued, "and prepare a disclosure for the board and our investors. The breach affects not just operations, but every downstream report built from that pipeline." The CEO exhaled hard through his nose. "Is there a fix?" Rebecca didn't answer right away. She just stared at him, then said, "The vendor requires formal reinstatement through the designated technical consultant. That's Michael Rodriguez Consulting, LLC. And according to the contract, reinstatement requires both active employment and consulting retainer status." She turned another page. The consulting agreement was automatically terminated when his bonus, which constitutes part of the retainer structure, was denied. To reactivate, he'd need to agree to new terms. What kind of terms? Whatever he wants. He holds all the leverage now. By noon, the building had the quiet hum of a funeral home. The implosion had begun. Investor dashboards inaccessible. Customer churn analytics gone. Forecasting reports, pulling data so stale it still referenced a discontinued product line. The vendor sent back a single brutal line in an email. License terminated due to consultant agreement breach. Reinstatement requires approval from Michael Rodriguez Consulting, LLC, designated technical partner. The account lead wasn't just me. It was my consulting company that they'd completely forgotten about until they needed someone to blame. The call came at 6:42 p.m. Just as I was pouring myself a glass of wine and feeding my cat, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Direct dial, no caller ID mask, no assistant buffer. That meant one thing. I answered with one word, yes. There was a pause long enough to hear his breath catch. Then, what will it take? No greeting, no introduction. Just gravel in the throat and desperation wrapped in a necktie. It was the CEO. Not his proxy, not his EA, not some groveling PR script. Him. I walked to my desk, sat down, and opened the folder labeled "They're Going to Beg." Inside, a PDF drafted by my attorney titled "Reinstatement and Buyout Proposal, Executed Upon License Breach." We'd prepared it 2 weeks ago. Before launch, before Brad got cute. Before HR thought policy was more important than people. I didn't respond right away. Let the silence stretch like piano wire. Then I clicked forward. The subject line read, "Your offer, window 24 hours. The document contained 4 bullet points. Immediate wire transfer of unpaid compensation plus 75% breach penalty to both employee and consulting accounts. New consulting retainer at $50,000 monthly for system maintenance and vendor relations. Buyout option for full IP transfer at $15 million. Executed through outside counsel. Written acknowledgement of technical leadership. To be read at company-wide meeting." I heard him open it. You could feel the moment the numbers hit his optic nerve. Nothing for 10 seconds. Then, quietly, "We should have just paid you the damn bonus." I didn't say I told you so. Didn't laugh, didn't throw confetti. I just said, "You've got until close of business tomorrow." Then the vendor gets the breach escalation. Click, no goodbye, no theatrics. 48 hours later, the wire confirmation hit my account at 11:23 a.m. Sunday, not just the number I'd asked for, more. The CEO had added a 20% goodwill adjustment and a stock options package in writing. Smart. He knew that if he didn't make me completely whole, I'd find another way to leave. The system was restored within 15 minutes of me sending the confirmation code to the vendor. Dashboards lit up like New Year's fireworks. Slack channels exploded with "It's back." Messages and party emojis. But I didn't return to the office. The CEO read a statement before 200 employees. Every word had been approved by me. The success of our analytics system could not have been achieved without the architecture and leadership of Michael Rodriguez. He didn't just build the system, he is the system. We've learned a valuable lesson about properly recognizing and compensating the people who create our company's success. Brad wasn't present. HR announced he had decided to pursue other opportunities. Corporate Speak For was fired. I received a notice from legal. They wanted to renew the licensing agreement. New price, $2.5 million annually for 3 years, plus royalties from any products using the platform. I declined. Instead, I offered them another option. Purchase the intellectual property outright for $15 million, or I would license it to their competitors. Sitting in my new office overlooking Silicon Valley, I watched the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. My former company had bought the IP for $12 million after negotiation. I used that money to seed my own firm. Brad? He was working at a mid-tier analytics firm making a third of his previous salary. His LinkedIn profile carefully omitted the circumstances of his departure. Rebecca had been promoted to general counsel. We still kept in touch, professional respect. My former company still used the system I built, but now they knew exactly what the person who created it was worth. A new email notification appeared in my inbox. Job opportunity, senior architect position, competitive compensation, full recognition for contributions. I smiled and hit delete. Some lessons only need to be learned once. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.